Get your notification. And all right, we're going to get started. So welcome, thank you for taking time today on whatever date today is, December 8th. As we know, this is a busy time of year for everybody, so really excited to have you here today to learn about our next EdTech Makerspace project, which isn't even going to start until the end of January. So you have a nice period of time to rest and relax, particularly those faces and names that I see who have been active participants in our recent EdTech Makerspaces. It's a nice 2-month window of no makerspaces, and maybe that's a sad thing for you, but I think it'll be a good break for everybody. But this session is about the one that will kick off our 2023 set of EdTech Makerspaces, and it is going to be a collaborative effort to build a digital skills glossary. So my name is Jeff Goumas. I'm a senior technical advisor here at the EdTech Center at World Education. And for this project, there will actually be 3 facilitators, 2 of my colleagues who I will let introduce themselves now. And while we do so, if you could please introduce yourself in the chat, maybe who you are and where it is that you teach in this world. So Mary?
Hi, Mary Gaston. I'm semi-retired, work with South Carolina Adult Education and as many EdTech makerspaces as possible. And I have to tell you, so far, I am so excited about this one. And the more work I do on it, the more excited I get. So we hope to have a lot of you join us. Good to be here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rachel Riggs, Digital Learning Specialist for the EdTech Center at World Ed. And I, too, am so excited about this makerspace. And it's bringing me back to a year ago when I was teaching ESL and wishing that I had the things that we will be making in this makerspace. So very cool to be a part of putting out some great resources for teachers out there. And I am based out of Augusta, Georgia. Good to see you all.
All right, thank you both. And again, please continue to introduce yourself in the chat. We will be grabbing the chat transcript after. I am equally excited. This is actually going to be a really first of its kind makerspace that's drawing upon the crowdsourcing of content, but in a very different way, where we're actually creating a lot of original content and ultimately creating an original resource that you will be building collaboratively with folks from around the country. And it does continue on a series of EdTech makerspaces that we have done since really spring of 2021. Focused on digital skills and digital skills activities, and now we're turning specifically to vocabulary. So today's session really going to talk about what our digital skills EdTech Makerspace journey has been. We've done a series of these projects where sometimes the end of the project does not necessarily result in a new thing, but it's helping us figure out how we can move forward and take the great ideas from our participants, our makers, and build them into something that's really usable to everyone. And so we'll show some of the things that have come out of our previous work and how that has informed what this Digital Skills Glossary EdTech Makerspace is going to be. And then we'll talk about this Digital Skills Glossary project, what it will entail, what you'll be doing. Most importantly, as with any EdTech Makerspace project, what you'll be learning, because that is the really important part. And for this one in particular, there's going to be lots to learn, from instructional design to accessibility to open content licensing, because you are going to be pulling together all of the pieces that go into this glossary. And then we'll just talk about the project details and logistics, and then next steps for you to hopefully join. And just as a preface to all of this, I'm going to be talking in slight generalities over the course of today, because there's a lot of complexities that go into planning this project, some of which we haven't necessarily hammered out, which one is why we're actually announcing this and doing this info session ahead of time, because for those of you who are interested, while we won't be doing any synchronous sessions until end of January, we may want to and likely will be throwing out questions to those who are interested so that we can fine-tune the ideas for this project, so that when we hit the ground end of January, we'll have thought through everything, and this will be an amazing experience for everybody. All right, so this project is part of a 3-year initiative that the EdTech Center is involved in called Digital Resilience in the American Workforce. And this project focuses on building digital resilience for adult learners. And so I actually want to start off with a poll for everybody to talk about what that means to you, and to also dive a little bit deeper into the skills that you feel important. So I'm going to X out of here and make it in the chat. I am going to paste a link to a Mentimeter poll. And this is a 3-question poll, and it is at presenter pace. So I'll provide some time for folks to respond. But the first question is about digital resilience, and I need to find what I thought was my, oh geez, where'd it go? Okay, we'll find it. There it is. All right, so what does the term digital resilience mean to you? And I'm going to put this into present mode, and we will see your response.
Computer skills.
Oh, no, sorry. If you can do the poll. Thank you, Victor. That's awesome. Is the poll working for folks? I just pasted a link.
Yes, it's working.
Okay.
Computer literacy. Computer literacy skills.
Awesome. Thank you. If you want to, so someone type that in. So awesome. Computer literacy skills. So we're seeing more than just digital skills. To bounce back and learn from your weaknesses, ability to be a strong user of digital resources and adapt to the changing landscape of the digital world. So this took time because some of these more complex responses obviously take a little bit longer to write, but it is more than digital skills, self-efficacy and confidence, transfer of skills, using computer outside of the classroom, so in different contexts, being able to get what's needed or get through a challenge online or on a device. These are great. One more moment here. Keep trying to master the task, to be able to conquer fear of the computer and the internet so you can always navigate. That is a great one. So these are really great. And by the way, in the presentation I'll share out all of these, as well as a couple of videos that we've actually gotten from educators about what digital resilience means to them. So great. I love seeing that someone has said that they're new to this. So that's going to be the focus, is transferring the sort of rote how-to that we often do with digital skills into meaningful digital resilience development through vocabulary. That's the goal of this project. Awesome. All right, next question. What digital skill do you feel is most important for learners to have? So computer literacy skills, discrete skills. So I think people are probably continuing on the digital resilience, critical thinking, problem solving, click this, sign up for this.
Ability to use a computer to navigate the World Wide Web and seek the information that will empower you.
The next session. Okay.
Troubleshooting. Thank you, Victor. Critical thinking. Victor, can you see my screen? Sorry. Okay. Critical thinking, website, navigating websites and landscapes. Awesome. Okay, so then we're going to go to the next screen. And thinking about those skills, what vocabulary terms do learners need to develop that particular skill or skill that you mentioned? So this last one, as the other two were open response. This is a word cloud. So the terms that you put are going to show up in different ways. And for repeat terms, there will be, they'll appear larger. So I'm seeing draft, search term, mouse, publish, monitor, link, web browser, copy. These are great. Everyone's got different ideas. No words are emerging as larger. So this is great that we're all bringing different ideas to the table about what's important. Search engine, tech support, when in doubt, operating system, file format, menu, troubleshooting. All right, so I'll give about 10 more seconds for responses here, and then we'll move on. Google it. That kind of is it's the key skill. For troubleshooting and problem solving. All right, these are great. So please continue to share the terms that you feel are of interest. Actually, we're compiling terms right now from all of the previous work that we've done with makers, and this will feed itself into that body of work that we take on together in building this glossary. So please keep on sharing. And so we are going to make our way back to the presentation. All right, so thank you for that. And so, as I said, this work is building off lots of previous work that's been happening around this. This is actually our fourth digital skills-oriented EdTech makerspace project that we've done over the past 2 years. And obviously that speaks to the importance of digital skills for our adult learners. And so many of you who have participated before or even are familiar with the EdTech Center and our work might be aware that there is a digital skills library that was released in March of this past year, and that was the result of EdTech makerspaces just like this. So our very first digital skills EdTech makerspace was about 1.5 years ago in spring 2021. And we had participants in that makerspace consider different the skills and competencies that learners need using a framework called the Seattle framework, which we'll look at on the slide that follows. But teams worked within different areas such as communication or information literacy or workplace skills. And they worked to identify what are the things that students or anyone needs to do as it relates to the skills within those different areas. And then they began and looked at different resources that teach digital skills, ones that we're familiar with, such as GCF Learn Free and digitallearn.org, Google Applied Digital Skills. And they aligned the activities from those resources to the framework and to the skills that they were working with in that project. And then earlier this year, we refined that work and we continued it by looking at the resources that had been aligned and the gaps that existed amongst those resources, specifically within key skills that were identified by the DRAW project and by a landscape scan that we did last year. And we use that as the basis to further curate more resources to fill in those gaps from additional places, things that we hadn't heard of, such as Common Sense Education's digital citizenship curriculum or the news literacy project. And so again, this library was developed looking at this framework and aligning activities from all of these great high quality resources to these particular domains and these particular skills. And the resources that we used to do that in that first project that I mentioned, the makers worked just with these 5.
For some hot water.
If someone can help me with the mutes, that would be great. Thank you. And then the second round of EdTech Makerspace earlier this year, we expanded into additional resources that you see here. And so compiled across all of these different great resources and through these two projects, the makers in those two projects built a library of over 1,800 activities that are aligned to that digital skills framework. And this includes articles and videos and e-modules and games and simulations and lesson plans, as well as multilingual resources. So in the chat, I'm actually going to launch into the Digital Skills Library right now, and I will share with you the results, or share with you this link so that you can take a look at the library. Mary Gasson has already done it. Thank you so much. And so as you can see, this library allows us to drill down into domains, or if we scroll down, we can just do an open search across anything. And at the top of the library, there is a link here to the framework that was used to align it. And so here are the specific skills that are in the Seattle framework. And I'll share this link as well, just in case you didn't catch what I just clicked on in the library. So right at the top is the link to this framework. And the framework is really important because it articulates exactly what all of these resources within the library have been aligned to, and what skills they are. And another just cool trick about that is, like, say we're talking about a skill such as organizing information in files. If this is something you're interested in finding activities for, this little code here is really important because that's kind of the standards code. And so I can do IS6, take that, and if I go down here, I can type in IS.6. And I'm going to see all of the activities that have been aligned to that particular skill, organizing information in files. So learning about tools such as Dropbox or using Google Drive, or even tools like Pinterest that allow you to organize online files for all sorts of different reasons, for recipes, for home decor, or even for education. As we know, a lot of teachers actually do use Pinterest for organizing information for themselves and for their students. And so the library is really flexible in that you can search by skill and then see what activities were aligned to that particular skill. And as you can see, there's a lot, sharing and collaborating. So all of these articles deal with that skill of organizing files. And then I also have the ability to sort by or to drill down into a more fine-tuned search. So say I want to find videos that deal with this. I can click on video, and now I can find any lessons or activities that include a video that supports the learning. So say Pinterest, why not? Like, we always talk about the boring things like Google Drive and Dropbox, but here's one on Pinterest. And so I can launch this and get to the video. Actually, I think it's a different one that's going to have that. But let me find a different one because that was a course. Yeah, so in most cases, the video actually shows up right here and I can watch it, but I can launch the video in YouTube. I could launch the original activity, or in this case, this thing about bookmarking in Chrome is part of a larger tutorial on Chrome. And so I can see all of the activities that deal with that. So bookmarking is one way of organizing information in files. So the library is a great way to do that. So now I wanted to do a quick little scavenger hunt to just look at the utility of this. And so if you are in the library, which hopefully you are, I'm going to ask you to use the library to find a particular activity and then share the link in our chat. And the reason I'm doing this is to show the utility of the work that we do together in these makerspaces. Like, because in that project, about 80 different people came together to do that work, we now have this great resource that makes it easy for educators to find digital skills activities. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to find a video. So what I want you to do is use the library to find a video that teaches how to evaluate information online. And once you find a resource, if you can share the link in the chat. So I'm going to let folks do that. And I know this will take about probably a minute each. And we've got plenty of time for that. So realizing you have an open search that you could just enter in a term. You have the framework, and the framework does have a skill specific. So right here, find a video that teaches how to evaluate information online. So Glenda seems to have found something. We'll let a couple more folks pop in, and then I'll jump into your links. But your ways of entry are just doing an open keyword search or use the framework, because one of the skills in the framework is actually evaluate online information. And then you could do that direct search, and you can find the resources that are specific to it. So I'll give like 15 more seconds. See if others. Great. All right, so feel free to like click on what folks are putting in the chat here, but here's a video on how to use Google reverse image search to fact check images. So that's a really interesting one. I didn't know that was in there. Glenda shared, I don't know why this is, or Glenda, did you actually share the exact same one? Maybe that's why I keep clicking on this and it's bringing me to that. It looks like it is. All right, let's go to a different one. Here is actually a course on how to avoid harmful sites. Here is one on digital media literacy, judging online information. This one is from GCF Learn Free. Here is a whole digital media literacy course from GCF Learn Free. So you can see that there's all of these different articles, and many of them have videos about evaluating and understanding the content that you're encountering online in media. And actually, one of the great things about these GCF Learn Free courses is they also have a YouTube playlist of the videos that are within that particular course or tutorial. And some people like sharing just the direct YouTube link because that displays really nicely on a phone, and it avoids all of the text that is in these individual articles that people have said sometimes might be a little bit too much for their learners. So these are great. I love the conversation that's happening about how meta this is in terms of we're actually finding resources for the thing that you're being asked to do, which is evaluate and find information. Great. All right, so the second one, project. All right, so there's projects in there too. So I want you to use the library to find a project-based activity to help students learn how to create a resume, an important job skill. Now note, you might need to clear your search fields if that was how you went about going that, because it's just going to layer on additional filters. So you might want to clear your filters before you do this, but we're looking at resume writing. So again, the framework does have a whole domain on workplace, and there's a set of workplace skills, and one of those skills is finding a job online. And so there's a skill code that you could use, or maybe the open search term resume would work for this as well. All right, so we've got creating a resume in Google Docs. There might be some repeats in here because there's a limited number of these, but they're all really strong, and many of them come from Google Applied Digital Skills. So we have creating a resume in Google Docs, starting a resume. Yeah, so these are some repeats, but Google Docs has some really great project-based resources. And so just to demonstrate how I might get to that, you can literally just type in resume, and that's going to filter down everything related to resumes, of which there's lots of different things, including even a resume writing quiz from GCF Learn Free. But then I can, again, go to format. And so if I want to find a project, here is that filter. And then it's going to drill down into the different, all of these different projects deal with resume writing within Google Applied Digital Skills. So there's lots of really great things in there. All right. And so finally, we'll do one more. This is fun. I actually like this. I could do this every Friday. Find a lesson that teaches about creating safe passwords. So any lesson, any activity, anything about creating safe passwords, this is a really critical skill that's needed. I have had issues with passwords actually that have resulted to me no longer being an entity on social media because my account was hacked, and I'm probably better for it. I don't really miss social media, but password skills are really important. From some of our employer partners, we learned that that's such a barrier for frontline workers to even access their benefits, to be able to ask for time off, because everything is within an HR portal, and they have to be able to use that. And the key skill to starting that is a password. So actually, I don't know which ones of these are new to, okay, I think this is in. So this Tech Savvy has password tips as an article in there, great. Creating strong passwords from internet safety, lots of things from digital GCF Learn Free, and that one has a video as well. I don't know if this one's actually in the library. Yes, this is. So how to create a strong password. So there's lots of really great resources out there. Common sense education. I don't think we showed anything from here, but these are really great extensive lessons that are teacher-led, but allow teachers to do that. So this is a long way of getting at the work that this has resulted in is really helpful, and it helps us to find those activities that we can then use with our learners to develop digital skills. And now we want to take it to the next level. And it's not just about the how-tos, but what is the digital resilience that makes someone not just know how to evaluate online information, but what are the specific things and the terms? What is the metacognitive set of steps that I'm doing when I'm thinking about, is this a valid source? And a lot of that roots back to vocabulary, which is why we are now going to be working to build a digital skills glossary. All right, and so why would we do this? One is for what I just said, to have those foundational terms at the ready for folks so that they can think about what are the terms that learners need to know in order to actually have internalized this skill. But the reason we're building this open digital skills glossary is because we want to provide ready to go lessons and activities for you to be able to teach digital skills vocabulary at a range of levels with activities that help build digital resilience. But because what you're going to be creating is open, meaning it's here's the word, here's the definition, and here are images that are openly licensed that go with that you could take this basis of content, and if you want to use something like what you see on screen here, WordWall, or other tools to build a vocabulary activity of your own, you have all of the building blocks at the ready, the words, the definitions, and supporting media, and even the word used in sentences for you to do as you please and create things that are relevant and specific to your instruction and to your learners. And once again, this builds off of the work of previous EdTech makerspace efforts. We already talked about that original makerspace for digital skills that we did in spring of 2021. But in that project, in addition to starting aligning all of the content that you just saw, makers in that project also started identifying for each of those skills in that Seattle framework, what vocabulary and terms were important for that skill. So that's like sat for 18 months. And so this is what's really exciting, is that work is now finally surfacing again, and we're ready to start building upon it because we've learned from all of these projects and the work that folks have done. Following that makerspace, we actually ran a maker camp last summer. And this was the first time that we engaged folks in what we call design slams, where it was looking at the vocabulary terms that had been found. We actually crowdsourced a vocabulary list using an open source curriculum that had words and definitions. And then we had makers take their favorite tools and design activities for vocabulary development. And some of the activities that we're actually going to be doing in this project are being picked up from those original ideas that makers submitted, again, 18 months ago. It seems like a long time ago, but really excited to bring that work forward and further in this particular project coming up. And then in a very recent makerspace, not necessarily focused on digital skills, but actually focused on what makes an activity reusable. And this is part of our Teaching Skills That Matter project. We had teachers use a cover sheet, an activity cover sheet, to design an original activity with an intense focus on reusability. So thinking of tools that allow me to create something and for you to be able to take that activity and adapt it and make a copy of it or whatever it is that you need in order to take it and adapt it for your needs and for your learners. And so these are lots of learning opportunities that we've had through collaborative work and creative efforts of makers that now result in what we're going to be building today. And when we're talking about reusability, this has been this focus of our work for a while. There's so many things that are out there, but they're not necessarily and freely available, but they might not be reusable for any number of reasons, whether it is the content isn't easy to adapt. So lots of things are available as PDF, but you really can't do anything with the PDF other than use it as is. And so thinking about what if I offer that content as the original Google Doc instead of a PDF that I've created, then somebody can adjust it as they see fit. And then accessibility is always a concern. And so accessibility is going to be a key part of what we learn about together as we're building out these resources. But from that Maker Camp, we got some really great ideas that, again, as I said, form the basis for the activities that you're going to be developing here. So here is one, and I know Nell is here. And so shout out to Nell. So Nell Eckersley created this really great activity for Maker Camp that has this menu-based option of words that all deal with the skill using a mouse. You're going to need a lot of using the mouse today just because it's kind of a low-hanging fruit it's a very tangible example that we can provide. But so for each of the terms in her library, she found GIFs that actually show what a drop-down looks like, and a word and a definition, and then I can click back to menu. We think this is a really great template and a great idea for being able to create a very basic overview. Most importantly, maybe you use this as is, or maybe you want to do left click, right click, and double click, and that's it. And with this resource, you have the ability to make a copy of it here. And then you can, I think you can, I believe you can. Anyway, we're making things so that you can. But if I just want those slides, I can take those slides and then I could maybe add my own images or add additional information about what it means to left click. So we really liked this in particular. Some other really great ones that we saw were tools like Flippity. And here's a really great example for language-based activities where these are all actions for using the mouse. And so this could be a whole class activity where you have students decide, is this word an action or is it an object? Is it a verb or is it a noun? And these are all dealing with using the mouse. So this is getting at building both language and digital resilience. And so that's the nature of what it is that we are going to be building today. But that first one, that really great activity that Nell shared, and then we had a couple other examples that were similar, is the basis for the main activity type that we're going to be building using the media that you gather for this project. And then again, as we've gone on this journey of EdTech makerspaces and thinking about reusability, an activity is great if it's there, but if a teacher doesn't really know what to do with it, then it's not necessarily helpful. So we've been exploring what information around an activity do teachers need to know in order for them to be able to effectively use it. So what kind of technology information do they need to have? Like, what do I specifically need to do in order for me to use this with our students? And we're seeing patterns. I can make a copy of this Padlet. I can make a copy of this Jamboard. I can make a copy of these slides. So providing that guidance on what is needed for this particular tool in order for you to make a copy. And as a creator, what do I need to do in order to make the settings such that someone can make a copy? Then instructional, how would you use it with learners? And then getting into, when we talk about digital resilience, how do I really develop that digital resilience with learners? And that's going to be the real meat of this project that we're doing. So what you'll be doing for this project, from that makerspace where we had students or participants using that guide, we had a great set of activities that came from that. And I'll just actually open this so you can see, and so I can share the link, because this will give anyone that is like, I wonder what we're really going to be doing here, a sense of some of the great work that happens from our makers. And so here are activities that teachers created, and their assignment was create a reusable activity that builds off of an existing resource. So that is taking something that exists and has students doing something with a new ed tech tool. And here's one example that I just think is fantastic. So here is a video that is on searching videos on YouTube. So this is a course actually from digitallearn.org that they used as the base instructional content. And then they created a Padlet. And the Padlet provides all of these problems that people have encountered. And then students use YouTube to find the answer to that problem. So they're learning things like search terms and evaluating information, all of that. And this is a completely reusable activity because they've set the Padlet so that you could remake this Padlet and you could share it with your students. And so that's the goal of what we're trying to create, is these reusable activities. And we really feel like through the work and through the efforts of educators that participate in these, we've landed on a model that we're now ready to have you do in this project. So what will you be doing specifically in the Digital Skills Glossary EdTech Makerspace? So first of all, we are, as I said, in the process of compiling this word list based on the inputs from all of this previous projects and what we've learned, and gathering these words and definitions, and then identifying the domains that the words themselves fall within. So within those domains of that Seattle framework. You'll see we're crowdsourcing open source definitions because that's really important, because then that gives you the license to be able to adapt it. Say you want to change it because you're working with beginning level English learners or intermediate level English learners and you want to adapt it, you have the ability to do that. So that's what we're basing all of this work on. And then with that word list in mind, you're going to start by working in domain level teams. And the first thing that you're going to be doing is gathering media. So if you remember on that slide that I showed, gathering media that allows for teaching that particular skill. So in this case, if the term was cursor, there's actually multiple different ways in which a cursor presents. So basically, we will be gathering the links and the documenting the source of each of those images and the licensing of those images. So we're really going to be diving into concepts around repurposing content and content licensing and fair use. But for each of the terms, we'll be gathering these things so that you can then design a lesson that includes the media that you want to use for your lesson. But then all of that media is also available for anyone else who wants to adapt or use different images, say, for an activity they run using that same term. So that's step one. Then step two, you're going to be generating original content. And so thinking of the term that you have, what are contextualized sentences that can give students speaking practice on using that term? And this is really important, not just for the presentation of information that's going to go into these activities, but in thinking of our own practice. And being intentional about the vocabulary that we use as we're teaching about the technology and the tasks that we're asking learners to do with the technology. So for each term, you'll be working in your teams to design and develop, these sentences that ultimately will go into your activity. And then using that, you're actually going to build for every single term within your particular set of terms that you've been assigned or selected. We're again, based on numbers, we're going to figure out how we actually divide up the work, and that it really is dividing. That is what a makerspace is crowdsourcing all towards the same aim and same goal and taking on the different pieces that we want to focus on. but you're going to be creating a slide for every single term that includes the term, that includes the definition, that includes the term in context, so those sentences that you write, and then that contains, the images that could be used to show what that looks like. In this case, it's a very physical thing. It's a cursor. It's going to be a little bit more abstract for other terms, and we're going to be focusing in the next 2 months on making sure that we have everything we need for those different variations. But what our goal is really, and this is a part of reusability, is for us to create a set of slides, a master slide deck that has all of these terms and has a slide for every single one, so that you will be designing lessons that specifically focus on a set of connected terms, but that we have this open set of slides that anyone could pull. They could take your activity deck, and if they don't like one of the terms or don't feel it's appropriate or at level for their students, they could take that slide out and they could add their own slide from this master set. So we're really going to be working and focusing on universal design and consistency, and using a template within Google Slides to create these. The one thing I missed is we're also going to be linking to a resource that provides pronunciation practice for students of the term. And I'll show you that in a second. You may or may not be familiar with it. It's actually a Google tool. It's just Google Pronounce. And you'll be adding in the hyperlink so that that is linkable to students. The reason we're using slides as well is these can be used online, and you could obviously download it offline as well. So it's a PDF. So it's flexible in terms of the format and delivery. So that pronunciation tool that I was pointing to earlier that wasn't highlighted on that slide, for most of the terms, but not all of them, you will be finding the link using Google Pronounce that allows a student to click on that, or you in whole class activity, and allows them to hear the term. It can be slowed down. You can actually do American or British pronunciation, but then what's really great about this tool is you can click on practice, and a student can actually practice the term, saying it, and it provides feedback as to whether or not they said the term correctly. And so this is to get at that listening and speaking practice that's important for English learners. This is also just a great skill that I use this all the time since I learned about it in a project that a teacher created. But some of those terms where you're like, do you say it this way or this way? I now use this term to find out the answer, because you can just say pronounce and word and Google has it. So this is something that will be added as media to each of your slides so that there's some language practice as well. And then you'll be pulling together the slides and the terms that you want into a cohesive lesson. So in the case that we've already shown, but using the mouse, there's more than 8 terms that one could use for using the mouse. This is going to be your call in terms of what 8 terms do you feel, or less, if there's just not 8 terms to be had, go with this particular topic or this particular lesson. You'll pull those slides together, and then you're going to learn how to create a menu slide like this so that you can hyperlink back and forth. And so this becomes basically a menu where a student or you could click on it, and it's going to bring you here to the right click, and then adding an icon down here that allows you to click back to home, so that it really creates a sort of a module of information and words and terms that can be used for the particular set of words. Click on the link when a mouse pointer in hand. Sorry, Glenda, noun project uses the term hand cursor icon. There may be another term. Oh, the nuanced vocabulary that we will get into. I think we're gonna have lots of great conversation around these terms as we are working. And these are the how-tos you'll be learning in Google and in Google Slides. So you will be using a template because we want to make sure these are accessible. You will be adding alt text to the images. So we'll be showing you how to do that. Using tools such as alignment and the distribution of objects on your slides so that things are nicely spaced. And then, as I said, creating this navigation so that it really is a contained resource, that you're not just going slide by slide, but students could jump to a specific term and back. So it's more of an interactive kind of module using Google Slides as the basis for it. And then you will be building, and so that's the basic activity, and just here are the terms, here's how to say it, here are sentences. And then you'll be building a activity guide that gets into digital resilience. So in our second session together, we will be diving into concepts around what does it mean to teach digital resilience? What are the common ways in which we can do this, specifically using vocabulary? And you'll be using a design guide, not this specific one, but something very similar that provides that procedural guidance for teachers in terms of how to make a copy of this, etc. But then specific guidance on what are the things you could be doing with learners to help them understand the transferability of these terms and the associated tasks. So in thinking of that, and this has been the most fun I've had like in the past 6 months, is like designing out these different types of things that you could do around here. So I find this to be very fun, but it's helped us to kind of understand what are the common ways that we could think about resilience in language. So in the case of mouse, we know that the same functions that you're doing with a mouse on a computer are going to be different if you're using a trackpad or using a touchscreen. And so designing an activity where you identify the actions that a student might do with the mouse or a trackpad or their finger on a touchscreen, and then talk about the variations across those things. So what is different that you're doing? What the physical act that you're doing is going to be different in all three of these things, but you're performing the same exact task. That is resilience. That's that transferability of opening a hyperlink, for example, is different on different devices and in different software as well. And so this is one example of really making connections across devices, because there is variation that's really important for students to understand. The other is making connections across contexts. So when you click on something in a web browser, typically, especially left click, that's really reserved for selecting menus and clicking or unclicking things that say on a form or launching hyperlinks. But in a document app, it's selecting menu items. And in a desktop, it's selecting folders and files. And again, your menu at the bottom. So all of the things that you're doing with these same actions there's similarities and there's differences. And so understanding those similarities and differences is another way of building digital resilience. Another type of activity you might design is around common icons and symbols. So the types of actions that you do and the what you see when you're doing it tend to be the same. So whether it's formatting text, okay? Formatting text, the things that you might do, bold, ital, underline, those are universal symbols that in any context or any tool that you're formatting text, you're going to see those symbols, and they mean the same thing each time. In your notes app on, say, your phone, it's the same exact things. So understanding what a text menu is, what those things do, what those terms are, and that anytime you have the ability to type in text, those icons are probably going to be present and helping the learner know what that means you're able to do when you click on it. In the case of cursors, these cursors are the same, but they're different actually depending on what you're hovering over. And the action that you're going to do with it is going to be different. So, my cursor might look like this. When I see this, that means I can move something. As opposed to this, which means wherever I click, I'm going to be able to type something, and giving students experience using those things. So these types of activities are what you're going to spend the big chunk of time doing. In the second half is really thinking about and working in teams to understand what could I design that provides guidance on building digital resilience in some of these thematic ways across devices, across tools, or even just the iconography and the specific task and how you can do that task or do these similar tasks in multiple contexts. And as you're going about doing all of this, we talked about the Google Slides and all of the tips that you're going to learn about that. But fair use of content is, we talk about this very in generalities in some of our other projects, but this is really going to be important for this one because you are going to be gathering images and we need to make sure that we're using proper attribution and licensing as we do that, as well as accessibility. So building in, and actually you're going to be making sure that you include alt text. Even in your design, your activity guide, you're going to be using headings and setting the language for your document. Those are important parts of accessibility. Because we want these all to look and feel the same, and you'll be working in teams, we'll be focusing on basic graphic design and making sure that things, look and have a cohesive feel across of the activities that you do. And then obviously that those activities that I just walked through will be working together and ideating and brainstorming what digital resilience means for your particular skills and your particular terms, and how that can be built into the activities that you create. And then as a bonus, what's really exciting is, as I've said before, the goal for this is not just to create these activities, but to have this word list that allows anyone to create any activity they want using the words, definitions, and images that we compile as part of this glossary. Our showcase, which is the third session, will be sharing out the activities that we've developed and then doing a round robin, if you will, of looking at different tools and sharing activity templates using those tools for vocabulary, so that moving forward, you could dive into taking the vocabulary list that's been developed and building out Jamboard activities using the words and definitions and images, or WordWall or Flippity. And so we'll be doing this kind of active learning in the last session, where you can see and we can talk about the different types of activities around vocabulary you might do with these tools. And then you have all of the building blocks with this glossary that you've created to go forth and do that. And so that's really exciting, is that this is this sort of starter dough, if you will, for doing any type of vocabulary development. So next steps, and again, this project doesn't start until end of January, so there's plenty of time. But basically, this is the info session, and this will be recorded and shared out. There will be a form sent out following this as well with the recording, and that's the registration form that you can use to sign up for this. And then these are the dates. Session 1 and 2 are just a week apart, because there's not necessarily a ton that needs to be done in that time period. And this is actually just trying to work around the schedules of our facilitators. But those first 2 sessions will be focused on building out your word lists and building the media and then designing those slides. And then from there, you'll have an extensive amount of time, a few weeks, to actually build out your digital resilience activities. And it all wraps up February 17th. So it's actually pretty condensed as these things go. But all the building blocks are kind of there. We'll be working in teams, and I think this is going to be a really, really fun one. So given there's 2 months almost between now and when we start, please do sign up. And once you sign up, you'll get an invite to the Google Classroom. As I said, we are still forming like what we think is going to happen in this, but you've seen the basics around it. And so we'll be fine-tuning those ideas and bouncing some of those ideas off of folks. So the sooner you get into the classroom, the sooner you can actually actively participating and making sure that this design meets everyone's needs as a project goes. Share with colleagues that you think might be interested in participating, and then most importantly, enjoy your winter break. I'm excited to give our incredibly active and dedicated makers time off to enjoy maybe some free time. And so I'll leave with that, and then we've got about 5 minutes. I can stay late for questions. Have there been any questions in the chat? I don't know if there's, and I'm definitely going to make sure to download this chat because I know there's been some great conversation happening.
Could you please go back to the slide with the dates?
Yep. Good. And actually, I can copy paste those and just put them in here so that you can copy paste them out if you want. If you can't make one of the sessions, is there still a way to participate? That's a really good question. Really, I'm not going to say any is least important. The third one is the least important. I think the first one, it's pretty critical because that's when you're going to be getting into your teams, understanding all of the steps and kind of starting to work with your teams and actually starting to select the words and the skills that you're going to be focusing on. So that is a pretty critical one. We will, as always, try to figure out ways to accommodate. And within this, we'll make sure to hold open office hours as we always do. But, ideally, we really encourage making space for folks to participate in all three and be present. But we can work around that. But it would really only be one. If you're going to be missing two, it might be a little challenging to really stay on top of things. The sun is coming out here in Chicago. Any other questions? Any ideas that people have, like based on what you see or thoughts? Like, it'd be pretty cool if we did something like this. Feel free to chat or unmute. All right. Well, that is a wrap, I guess. Please do enjoy your break. Be on the lookout for the follow-up email, which will have the registration, the recording of the slide or the slide presentation as well, so you can go back and look at it. And all of the things that I shared are linked in these slides. So if you want to be like, oh, what was that thing, that Padlet that had all those cool teacher activities, that link is in here as well, so you can start exploring. And you get 2 months to think about all the great things that you want to do as part of this project. I really do hope you will all be participating. All right. With that, we are going to stop our recording.